Welcome back to the show. That'll be the Team Sammy podcast. It's been something like 60 some days since I've recorded. The last thing I talked about was the free agency moves the Lions had made, how discouraged I was on that. Maybe made a little bit of a comeback at the end there with guys like DJ Wanham and Christian Izzian. And got some notes here because I did have a lot on my mind. I think those were really the only guys. I think maybe the re-upment of Avante Maddox hadn't happened yet, and that I was very glad that happened. But today we're just going to go through the schedule of the Lions, easiest schedule in pro football this year. So even if you don't believe the Lions are a good team, obviously I do. I don't believe they're a Super Bowl contending team, I'll say that. But I do believe that they are a great team. And especially with the schedule, they are more than capable of winning 12-plus games compared to the 9 that they won last year. Preseason games, they play at the Bengals, home against the Commanders, and then to end it at the Colts. Don't care about any of that. We will be starting the regular season. Lions, -7, hosting the Saints, Sunday at 1 p.m. If I had to guess, they'll get put on with a terrible play-by-play guy like Chris Myers. But, it is what it is. The Saints, head coach Kellen Moore, offensive guy. He was getting a lot out of Tyler Shuck, or at least the most that he could have gotten out of Tyler Shuck toward the end of last season. He actually made a push for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think it ended up going to Tedero McMillan. But Shuck got some votes there at least. But that's the type of situation where, I don't actually know how much I believe in the product that I saw of Tyler Shuck, and I don't really know how much I'm expecting, big improvement. I think there's a chance that we have seen Tyler Shuck's ceiling in the NFL last season. They've got Travis Etienne now to probably start over Alvin Kamara, as Kamara is at the very, very much twilight of his career. And then the receiving core of Chris Olave, the rookie Jordan Tyson, and then shoring up the tight end room is Juwan Johnson. Terrible offensive line. They rank probably around the bottom 5, if I had to guess. Aiden Hutchinson can feast up on that. They don't really have any good pass rush. The Saints don't. Kool-Aid, though, if he has a jump up, along with they've got a pretty solid safety room there in New Orleans. I certainly think that the Saints have the capability to make a game like this competitive, but I certainly would not bank on it. I would take the Lions to win this game. I wouldn't necessarily say easily, but probably by more than one score. That would put them at 1-0 on the year. Lions travel to Buffalo to play at the Bills, first Thursday night game of the year. Or I guess first Thursday night game on Prime on the year, because the opening Thursday game is always on NBC. I don't really know what's going on with the schedule this year. There might be a Wednesday game. I hate everything that the NFL schedule has become. The obsession with extra games and extra holidays. There does not need to be a Black Friday game. There doesn't need to be. There does not need to be a Wednesday game to open up the year. There does not need to be this many international games. Having a few Saturday games toward the end of the year once the college football season is over, sure, I'll give you that. But with the weird, wonky stuff that we're doing with the NFL schedule this day and age, it is just terrible. And we're getting to the point where we could have an international Super Bowl on the rise, or every team's required to play overseas for one game of the year. It's getting to the point where it is actually getting close to ruining the sport. Not obviously entirely, but certainly taking away. Nobody wants to watch a game played in front of a neutral crowd. Because why? Nobody cares. None of them. Playing in front of a home crowd, not only is it an advantage, but it's also just, it adds so much more to the environment. Nobody cares about the fans in Germany. I'm sorry. Nobody does. You see international soccer clubs, they will play preseason games in the United States. That's what they'll do. Games that don't matter. Why can't we have some teams fly out overseas preseason to play? I mean, that'd make the most sense. I'm sorry, a little bit of a tangent there. The Lions traveling to play the Bills. I'm just going to chalk this up to be a loss. The Bills are going to be just as good this year as they've been the last 7 or 8 years under Josh Allen. Another MVP season. Bills are -3, by the way. Another MVP-esque season is likely incoming with the James Cook emerging to be borderline top 5 running back in football the past couple of seasons. I don't really expect to slow down there. And then now the addition of DJ Moore will at least make the wide receiver room viable. Khalil Shakir, I think, will be a great wide receiver too. He honestly still could be the one because DJ Moore did not have a great tenure in Chicago, and he's not getting any younger, So I wouldn't necessarily bank on DJ Moore being like a workhorse there. I wouldn't even bank on a 1,000-yard season. But it certainly is a step up, and then Josh Palmer is the third option. Dalton Kincaid, he's the guy. I mean, it's really as simple as that. He's not ever really going to be anything special, in my opinion. But he's still a guy that you're going to – he's a better-than-average tight end. I'll leave it at that. The defense for Buffalo is aging, but still pretty solid. The Lions are probably going to have to turnovers at a minimum when you're playing a defense like Buffalo, which the Lions are actually pretty good at holding on to the football, but games have just – the way that the Lions lose the past couple of years is just games where they just turn it over an abnormally high amount of times, like the Commanders playoff game from a couple of years ago. That's probably how this game would get out of hand. Even without turnovers, I still think Buffalo wins this one. Moves us on to week 3. Lions are hosting the Jets. They're already 9.5-point underdogs. The Jets are the worst coached team in football. The Jets are the worst – I won't call them the worst team. The Dolphins exist and the Cardinals. But Geno Smith is coming back home. It's the first reunion of a player where the player sucked the first time around, but he became a decent player elsewhere, and now now that he's coming home, it's I don't know why Jets fans or Jets Nation is celebrating the return of Geno Smith, because you were the guys that made the start of his career so terrible, and now you're celebrating that he's finally back after 10 years or whatever. I don't know. It's funny to me. I remember I used to be a fan of a team like the Jets when the Lions were irrelevant. They're not irrelevant anymore. I'm sorry, Jets. I don't have any. You'll get out eventually, maybe. I've made the playoffs in 16 years, so actually probably not. Breece Hall's not really. I mean, he's just a guy. That's really as simple as it is. Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper will be exciting. Kenyon Sadiq also could be pretty exciting. Middling O-line, I'd say. They've actually got a pretty good pass rush. I love me some Will McDonald. I do. I really love me some Will McDonald. But they had 0 interceptions last year as a team. You can't even make that up. That's insane. And then they're led by Aaron Glenn, former Lions defensive coordinator. I wish Aaron Glenn the best, but it's not like the Lions were kicking themselves after they lost Aaron Glenn. Now, to be fair, we did replace him with Calvin Shepard, who's probably 30 times worse. But it's not like Aaron Glenn is a just top tier. He's a bottom tier head coach. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to chalk that up to a win for the Lions. Moving on, going to Carolina. Is this a Sunday night? It is a Sunday night. Dan Campbell historically has played well in primetime. He had a couple of primetime losses this past year. Chiefs, the Eagles. I'm probably forgetting some. Bryce Young, not concerned because Bryce Young can't stretch the field. I didn't watch a lot of Panthers last year. I have no idea how they beat the Rams in the regular season at least. They won in Green Bay, and then you go out and I think they got killed by the Saints. Maybe they killed the Saints. I don't really remember. But they're nothing that happened made any sense at all, really, with how the Panthers played. Lions -3, by the way, which is a little low, even though they are on the road, the Lions. I would chalk this up to a big Lions win. Not really an inspiring offensive line or really defense at all from Carolina. I guess Derek Brown, and okay, you know what? I take that back. Derek Brown's a good player. J.C. Horn's a good player. So they've got good players. The unit itself as a whole, I'm not necessarily sweating. I would give the Lions 30+ points, probably win by 10, and move to 3-1 on the year. Not really concerned about Jalen Coker or Xavier Legette either. Drew Hubbard's a nice player. I don't know if Jonathan Brooks is going to play this year. I don't really know. Again, I don't follow the Panthers at all. I don't know what that situation really looks like. Yeah. Moving on, Lions play at the Cardinals. Cardinals used to be the number one thorn in the Lions' side when I was growing up. Could not find a way to beat those guys. Even tied to them week 1 in 2019. That was crazy. Had to go to youth group in the middle of that game when the Lions were up big. Get picked up by my dad, drive back home, games in overtime. Stafford throws a dropped interception that would have actually won Arizona the game. Instead, the Lions were able to punt and keep it at a tie. But boy, was that game depressing. I just have a lot of memories of us matching up with the Cardinals a lot, and I think it's for good reason. They are always bad growing up. The Lions are always bad growing up. So, even if the Lions weren't playing the NFC West, the Lions were likely matched up with their one NFC West team being the Cardinals because they probably each finished 4th or 3rd. But recently the Lions have turned the tables. I don't know how many times in a row we've beaten Arizona, but it's probably 4 or 5. Not really nervous about Jacoby Brissett. I find it so funny that he's sitting out for OTAs or whatever, wanting to negotiate up a contract. The fact that the Cardinals are being held to tied down by Jacoby Brissett is just so funny. That's the point that this team has gotten to, is that a top 30 quarterback maybe is calling the shots for your team. I mean, that is very, very funny to me. Mike Shanahan's going to be taking over. I don't really know too much about Mike Shanahan, so I'm not going to comment on it. I'm not going to comment on a situation where, I don't feel educated enough to make, an educated comment. I don't know. That sounded stupid. I have a feeling, though, that the Lions are just going to have a very tough time covering Marvin Harrison Jr. The Lions are really good at making middling wide receivers look great, and Marvin Harrison Jr. has the capability of being a top 5 receiver. He just does. If he can get the mental aspect, the drops, get rid of the drops, which is, I think, more mental for him than physical, because we were seeing at Ohio State just these tremendous catches. Those drops, like that Thursday night drop he had against Seattle last year, that's not him. So if he can get the mental stuff figured out, the physical stuff is all there. The skill, the talent, it's all there. I've got a feeling Marvin Harrison Jr. probably goes for 150 yards and a touchdown against the Lions. It's just probably going to happen. Lions probably still win the game by 20 points. Lions are 8.5-point road favorites. I mean, the Cardinals are just not a good team. So I would chalk that up to being a W, which would put the Lions at, what would it put them at for me? Yeah, 4-1. This is where stuff gets real, Sunday at 4:25, I would assume it'd be the Fox game of the week, whatever. Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady is the Lions' first NFC North matchup of the year. That would be home against the Packers. Lions are 1.5 favorites. Packers scare me because right now they have the Lions' number. As I mentioned earlier, the Packers had an inexplicable loss to Carolina, so it's not like this is an untouchable team. But Jordan Love plays very well against the Lions, and I don't necessarily know if this is Jordan Love. I don't know if this is something the Packers see on film with the Lions. I just think it's as simple as the Lions' defense just isn't good enough. It's just not good enough. They are able to expose the Lions' defense with the worst wide receiver core in football, and that's what it is. It is the worst wide receiver core in football. Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, I think, is still there. Honestly, I don't know. Matthew Golden. Maybe I'm missing their real number one. I don't remember. It's a terrible, terrible receiver room. Jaden Reed, I guess, is there. Because I don't think Romeo Doubs is there anymore. Whatever. That part I'm not necessarily concerned about. Josh Jacobs had a great Thanksgiving against Detroit, obviously, last year. That game's very frustrating. Ball on 4th down thrown behind Jameson Williams. That was a touchdown if that's an accurate ball. And the outcome of that game could have been very different. I don't know what Micah Parsons' timetable of return is. I would think he'd be back for this game. And so Micah Parsons has had the better of Penei Sewell in their careers. Other than that one game where the Lions got cheated out the week after Christmas, that Saturday night against Dallas in Dallas, Penei Sewell played a very good game against Micah Parsons. But really, other than that, it has been a battle that Micah Parsons has won. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about Dan Campbell. He's not going to let himself lose 3 times in a row to the Packers. I don't believe it. This is a team that will be coming off of a bye as well. Extra time to prepare. I heard something that Rod Wood didn't want the bye in Week 11 and was giving it to the team early. Why you would ever choose that, I don't know. But at the very least, I can say, at least the bye is headed before Green Bay week, because that is I'm just going to chalk up the Bills to a loss. The Lions don't play the AFC very well. The Lions don't play mobile quarterbacks very well. I'm chalking that Bills game up to being a loss already. If we win that, that's a win with house money, in my opinion. This game against Green Bay is the first real test. And I do think the Lions pass that test because, again, I do think the Lions are a good team. Which would move the Lions to 5-1 on the year. This is also where the Lions, by the way, are a 1.5 favorite in that game. This is where things get real. Part 2, Lions against the Vikings. Also got swept by the Vikings last year. That Christmas game was brutal because the Lions had an inability to move the ball. But Jonathan Grenard is gone. Kwesi got fired in disgrace. Not actually disgrace, but he just wasn't good at his job when everybody thought he was for a minute, which is kind of funny. Just can't draft. Great with making moves for guys like Andrew Van Ginkel, who is somebody who has had his way with the Lions. But you're either playing Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned there. Vikings offensive line is great, though, or at least has great pieces, has the ability to be great. That would be something to watch where, the Lions, even like Aiden Hutchinson, I see him get called a top 5 pass rusher, on the comment, at least in the Twitterverse. Most of those people are idiots. He has a tendency to disappear in these types of games. First day in November, it has nothing to do with it, but a mid-season game that Aiden Hutchinson just doesn't show up for seems like something that has the capability of happening. But I'm just going to give you a hint right now. I've got the Lions splitting a lot of these division games, which just means why would you predict them to win on the road when they have an inherently easier game at home? I'm going to give this one to the Lions, which puts them at 6-1 to start the year. That is a little, yeah, you can call me a homer, whatever. But I don't even think that's that much of a stretch with the schedule that the Lions have. Next up, Lions play the Dolphins. Win. Moving on. To put them at 7-1. Munich. Lions going to go play in Munich. I don't think the Patriots are very good. This organization, the whole situation with Rossini and Vrabel, I don't know. I've got a feeling the Super Bowl hangover is going to hit this team rough. The team did not look very good in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. And really, for that matter, C.J. Stroud is kind of who won on the game in the divisional either. The last time that team looked good was in a win against the Chargers, and a team that it's in its DNA to be incapable of winning postseason games or really big games of any kind. Am I calling the Patriots frauds? Yes. And the Lions have the potential to do a lot what the Patriots did last year. The Patriots took advantage of a schedule that was very favorable and got themselves to a very high seed in the playoffs, which got them very favorable playoff matchups. That's something the Lions certainly could capitalize on this year. I think the Lions win. I don't trust Drake May's ability to throw the football. I don't trust Travion Henderson's probably going to be great. But other than that, I don't really have any fear in those offensive weapons. Will Campbell, love him. Love him when he plays. I love watching him get beat. I led that off incorrectly with the point I was trying to make. That dude is going to get exposed. That dude could get exposed by Derek Moore. I mean, he's not an NFL player. Short arms. I mean, yeah. I'm giving this one to the Lions. Moving on, they're 8-1 now to the Bucks, and I'm going to give this one a loss. Home game to the Bucks. Lions are 4.5-point favorites. I don't know, you can't keep winning forever. The traveling back to the United States, You've not had a bye in a while. If I know the Lions, they're going to have a lot of injuries at this point, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Plus, they play Chicago the next week. They could be caught on Thanksgiving, obviously. They could be caught looking ahead a little bit, especially because that game is only 4 days later. Less time to prep. And again, a game against Chicago is going to be far more important than a game against the Bucs. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one strictly to that as an L. Baker Mayfield didn't look great to close the year last year. And so there's certainly could be some concerns there just with the Tampa Bay as a whole. But a revenge game with Alex Anzalone, who is just not a fan of the Lions organization at all. I get the feeling that guy's going to be ready to play against Detroit. Same thing with Al-Qaeda Muhammad, who also departed for Tampa from Detroit this past offseason. Yeah, I'm going to give this one to the Bucs, move the Lions down to 8-2, and now the aforementioned matchup against the Bears on Thanksgiving. It is in the Lions' DNA to lose on Thanksgiving. However, their most recent Thanksgiving win was against the Bears and against Caleb Williams. And it is in the Lions' DNA to beat the Bears right now. That's what they've been doing recently. It's what they've been doing in the 2020s. It's even what they did in the 2010s. People don't like to talk about it, but the Lions and the Bears played a very equal decade in the 2010s. Excuse me. Since the Super Bowl era has happened, the Lions have a winning record against the Bears. Bears fans, I'm sorry. Yeah, you have one Super Bowl. Cling to it. That's all you have. You've been terrible since football has been modernized in any sense. Yeah, I'm gonna give that win to the Lions. Again, part of what encompasses a loss to Tampa would be a win to the Bears because of them looking ahead to that game and move them up to 9-2. At the Falcons, man, I would love to play either Michael Penix or Tua. Having two lefties battle for the spot is just so funny to me because you will never see that again, really. And two lefties who are just viewed as failures. Tua failed in Miami, and Michael Penix has failed so far as a top 10 draft pick. Kevin Stefanski's come in, two-time coach of the year in Cleveland. He's going to come ready to prove himself, as it was the Browns that were what was wrong and not Stefanski that was wrong. And I actually believe that that's the truth. Because what's Stefanski going to do with the worst quarterback in football, Shadur Sanders? You're not going to do a lot with that. You're not going to do a lot with Massage Watson. Dorian Thompson-Robinson at times. I don't even think he's on the roster anymore. But that was, at one point, who he was dealing with, Joe Flacco. I mean, yeah, I just crapped on both of the lefties in Atlanta right now, but at least they're better than those guys. Every name that I mentioned that is a quarterback on the Browns is not as good as Tua or Michael Penix. Drake London, great player. Bijan Robinson, great player. Chris Lindstrom, great player. It's got the capability to be a great offense. Kyle Pitts, I didn't even mention, had a pretty good season last year, and he is slowly getting better and better. I mean, man, the more I talk about this game, Lions 3.5-point favorites, by the way, on the road. I'm getting more and more concerned actually kind of looking at that because this is the type of game where the Lions defense could just crumble. I'm still giving the win to the Lions. I don't think they're losing to the Falcons because the Falcons are a team that does not know how to win. This Lions team has had 4 straight seasons with winning records. Falcons haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. So I'm going to chalk that one up to the Lions. Lions-Titans. Lions win. They're 11-2. It's simple as that. Cam Ward, I want him to be good, but I just the roster built around him is just not a roster that's ready to take that next step. I'll bet you anything in like the RBT video of like the prediction that he does closer to the year of like every team in the standings. I'd bet my life he puts the Titans at least in second place in that division. No win 4 games. It's what keeps happening because that dude is incredibly unrealistic with his expectations of the Titans, and it's not even rage bait. The fact that it's not rage bait pisses me off so much. The fact that dude goes out there and speaks like he actually believes what he's saying about the Titans. It is so angering to me. Lions at the Vikings, Sunday Night Football. I'm going to drop that to an L. I'm going to drop an L there because I had the Lions beating the Vikings earlier in the year. I'm dropping the Lions to 11-3. Kevin McConnell will likely have his guys ready to go. That Vikings crowd's no joke, especially if I had to guess with this game being a Sunday night game on December 20th. It's probably going to be a whiteout game. That crowd is just going to be so ready to go. And again, the Lions crumbled inside of Minneapolis last year. Yeah, I'll give that one to the Vikings. Drop the Lions to 11-3. Lions home against the Giants. Go back to the very first thing I said in this video about Tyler Shuck, where it's like I think we may have seen his ceiling. I think we've seen the ceiling of Jackson Dart. There's a reason he kind of fell to the mid-20s, and nobody was really expecting much out of him, and it's because he doesn't really have the tools to just become an amazing quarterback in the modern NFL, especially the way he runs. He puts his body in danger constantly. The Lions didn't play against him last year. They played against Jameis Winston, and it did take overtime to win that game. But it also took devil magic for that game to even have to go to overtime. The Lions were very clearly the better team that was playing very careless football that day. I think that was the game. Where Thomas Harper had a pick. I hate Thomas Harper. He's not good at football. I think Thomas Harper had a pick that game, and then the Lions instantly turned it back over. That was one of those games where it was so difficult for me to watch that I was actually turning it on and off because it was just bad for my mental health to be watching this. So I'm going to give that a win, put the Lions up to 12-3, and I'll just loop the last two together at the Bears, at the Packers. I think the Lions drop those two games each because I'm just having the Lions split in the division because the NFC North is just very, very highly competitive. And that's why I actually think that game, Monday night game against the Giants, by the way, I think that game is of utmost importance for the Lions because of just how big these divisional games are, and you can never, ever pencil in a win against a divisional opponent, especially not when it's as competitive as it is right now in the NFC North. That I think that Giants game on Monday the 28th is going to be extremely important for the Lions to capture that before heading into their last two games of the year in Chicago and in Green Bay, both outside on the road, where Jared Goff is, I think the narrative that Jared Goff plays poor outside is a little overblown, but it is a narrative for a reason, and it's because he has shown in the past certain limitations of playing outside in the cold. But yeah, I'm going to chalk up a couple losses to end off the year. Lions finish 12-5, which is what I said at the beginning of this year. Don't be surprised if this team has the capability to go do that. Jordan Love just plays so well against the Lions. That dude makes throws against the Lions he doesn't make anywhere else, and it's really frustrating to watch happen. And Ben Johnson is not going to let himself start 0-4 against his former team. Mando, I hate that guy. But the Lions have a good team. The Lions have good players. That's kind of the knock on the Lions. Is I don't really think they've got a good unit, especially not defensively. They do have a good wide receiver core, especially with Sam Laporta coming back. But, they have a good pass rusher in Aiden Hutchinson. They have a good linebacker in Jack Campbell, and even then, a one-dimensional linebacker, a guy who struggles still in pass coverage, specifically in zone coverage, doesn't know how to play it. The Lions have a good Kirby's might never be 100% again. This might be his last season. You don't know when Brian Branch is coming back. He tore that Achilles in December. That Thursday night game against Dallas. That Lions defense, it's gonna scare me all season long. I don't see any reason to believe yes, this Lions defense is going to take the next step. They didn't make that huge move. Derek Moore is a guy drafted out of Michigan. That might be part of the reason he got drafted by the Lions, trying to keep him in state, a little bit of a fun story. But as long as you keep Kelvin Shepard or anybody from that Aaron Glenn tree as the ones calling the defense for this team, I don't see anything that's going to change. The definition of insanity is expecting the same thing to yield different results. And this is a very similar unit that I don't believe is going to yield different results. They'll be a bottom 10 defense. It's just the truth. It's just what's gonna happen. Especially if this team gets injured a lot, which again, sometimes injuries are fluky, but when your defensive unit gets extremely injured 2 years in a row, you kind of start to wonder if that's not really a fluke, and you kind of wonder if that has to do with the conditioning or how hard the practices are, things of that nature. But yeah, 12-5 season for the Lions is my prediction. Helped mostly by the schedule, but still is a very real team, a very dangerous team, a team to be feared. And I think teams do I don't know if fans view the Lions that way, but I certainly do believe teams kind of see the Lions on their schedule and are not happy by any means. But yeah, that's really, I'll be honest with you, I didn't come prepared. I wrote stuff down for the first 5 games, and then had to take a final. This was earlier this afternoon. And then forgot to finish the list, but I didn't want to spend another 30 minutes writing stuff down before coming to talk. I just was too eager, so I just came and talked. So, that's my take. Lions 12-5. I probably won't do another episode until December or January if the Lions are in the playoffs. I'll certainly be previewing the outlook of that. So I'll probably see you guys in 7-8 months. But I will see you guys later. Thank you for tuning in.